Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Now, at the weekend, we learned the composition of the 2019 Rugby World Cup final. And just like in 2007, it'll be England taking on the Springboks, courtesy this time of respective wins over the All Blacks and Wales. We're going to get Ronan O'Gara's view on the final momentarily. But speaking on this morning's OTB AM, Brian O'Driscoll was asked who he would rather see win come Saturday morning.
It sounded like you're aiming for an England, or predicting an England victory in a narrow enough game at the weekend, Brian?
Yeah, I do you know what? It's, you know, it might be a bit unpopular in Ireland, but I hope it's an English victory. I think they deserve it. They're the best team in the competition at the moment. They play the best rugby, and I think it'll be good to shake up the world order. I think it's good that South Africa are back and are a big threat. I think that's important to world rugby, that our superpowers are back playing the way we expect them to play. But, on the basis of that semi-final, God, I hope we don't get anything of that standard. That Wales-South African semi-final, 81 kicks out of hand, was no advertisement for the game. So I hope that England go out and play expressively the way they have done so far, and get after South Africa. And if they get an early score, I think we might see a bit more of an open game. But I reckon it won't be particularly high scoring. So, yeah, I've been mediocre on my predictions so far. So I'm going to go with a 16-9 win to England.
16-9 win to England, says Brian O'Driscoll. Ronan O'Gara, the La Rochelle head coach, ex of Munster in Ireland, joins us on the line. Ronan, are you as vehemently waving the St George's Cross come Saturday morning as your former teammate there?
No, I'm not. No. They were brilliant against New Zealand, but we're only at semi-final stage. This is the big 80 minutes, and I think this is. It'll be interesting to see. I don't think they can hit the levels that they did against New Zealand in the final, but I may well be proved wrong. But I think what South Africa have, they have a brilliant 1-10, and I think you only need a 1-10 to win a final. So with Pollard kicking the way he is and managing games, numbers 11-15 may be a bonus. England, when you were in the ground, which I was lucky enough to be at that game the last day, there was a phenomenal tempo to the game, and they ran New Zealand off the park within 120 seconds and went 7-0 up. So I think that, England have, I suppose, different ways of playing the game. South Africa have one way, but I think what will be very different this time will be, how I suppose the South African pack will be stronger than the New Zealand pack, most definitely.
Given the fact that you were there on Saturday morning, were you as surprised as a lot of the rest of us at the manner in which England rolled over the All Blacks?
Yeah, you were. And especially, I suppose, they were dealt 2 disallowed tries, that they had the mental, I suppose, fortitude to withstand that and keep coming back at them. And I suppose to kind of win the game in the manner they did speaks volumes for what they did. But saying that, when Dan Coles went up the sideline with 10 minutes to go, usually New Zealand put that opportunity away, and if it becomes a one-score game, I think it is a very different proposition to closing out a game when you have the benefit of being 2 scores clear. You look at, I suppose, Sam Whitelock's indiscretion when he hit out at on far, which is one of, that does, that's what pressure it does to people. He's the best win rate in world rugby in terms of what he's done as a leader and as a player. And I suppose with 14 minutes to go, when New Zealand had a penalty just outside the England 22, you could, I don't know whether they've scored from kicking to the corner with a line-out drive against how good England were up front, but it was a big opportunity to launch a sustained, I suppose, period of attacks against England, but that penalty was reversed with 14 minutes to go. That was another big moment. So on the outside, it looks like England were completely dominant, and they were, to be fair, but they didn't put away the game like some people probably are describing, because I think everyone probably expected New Zealand to win, so you sometimes over-reflect how good England were when you expect another team to win.
Yeah, I think everybody was more than anything else blown away by that performance of that trio in the English pack of Curry Underhill and Maro Itoje. Like, the three of them were superhuman.
I would agree, and I think it's crazy the levels we've got to with Itoje that I was there and I didn't even. I said for me Ford, Underhill, and Curry were standout or were immense, and but it's just assumed that Itoje does that. That's the level, I suppose, of the standing he has in the game now, and. But they got after England's line out, and also their own maul was incredibly impressive. So yeah, the damage was done up front, as you say. The two back rows overshadowing Billy Vunipola. For once, we never mentioned Mako and Billy Vunipola, and usually they're the two best players for England. And then they've great balance. I think Jamie George too was an unsung hero. I think. People would say it was an overthrow for the line-out. I'm not too sure about that. I think there's a number of factors that just went wrong with that, and I like a kind of guy who goes to the max of the height when he throws a ball in. It shows a really secure, confident player in his own ability, that he's not looking to hit the recipient in the chest. He's looking to hit it at the peak of his throw. So, England are. I think probably from New Zealand's point of view, it wasn't a good thing for them to face Ireland. I think their body language or their intent for that game looked really good for Ireland's game, and I thought they felt like, okay, this is England, another Northern Hemisphere team. They'll be up a few levels from Ireland, but I think they got a shock to see how much up in terms of the levels England were, and also at this level of sport, if you lose momentum or you lose early collisions, it's really difficult to get it back. And you could see that England won the scraps, and England, I think, managed the game better, and Ford's management of the game was top notch.
They put themselves in a position, of course, to be able to manage the game better. I mean, when you score after whatever it was, 86 seconds, it's a huge boon. From an English standpoint, you mentioned the fact that you would query whether they have that performance in them 2 weeks running. What would make you question that, apart from the obvious attritional nature of it and the fact that it might have physically taken so much out of them?
Am I losing you? Am I here?
You're still with us.
Oh, sorry, I just wasn't too sure. Could you see me? Because I'm after.
Picture-wise, we can't see you at the moment, but we can definitely hear you, so we can make up the shortfall, don't worry.
Okay. Well, I think the South African pack, I think they'll have a stronger scrum than New Zealand, and they'll have a stronger line-out drive than New Zealand. So that's two areas straight away. Their kicking game would be very different to New Zealand, because New Zealand don't really plan to kick the ball. They kick it for fun at times. And you could see that, I think, where New Zealand have a big advantage over other teams is the fact that their attack is so good that they usually score tries and get away with it. But England's defence was incredible. That's what the difference was in the end.
Eddie Jones was speaking beforehand. He mentioned the fact that, South Africa have a massively aggressive forward pack, and they played their stronger team in the second half as opposed to the first half. This is something that they do. I mean, even the formation of the Springboks bench has raised a couple of eyebrows, both in the quarterfinal and the semi-final, is that they've gone with that 6-2 split in terms of forwards and backs, that they seem intent on winning that game, winning that battle among the forwards, and having that be the definite, it definitely was the case against Japan, and they eventually wore Wales down on that front too. It's something that seems to be working for Erasmus.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think so much of their game too is, I think, is on suffocating the opposition, and also, as you saw, the semi-final wasn't a great advertisement for rugby, but that's not the point. Semi-final is all about just trying to get to a final, and then I think people make the mistake of, you need to be World Cup champions. You don't have to be the best team for the 4 years. You just got to be the best team for 80 minutes, and you hold that title for 4 years. So the reward is huge. I think it's really important that, I suppose, the listeners understand the difference between how New Zealand go about winning a game and how South Africa go about. So, I think New Zealand, in the fact that they didn't go ahead against England, really suited England, because they were able to manage them, they get ahead. But New Zealand, if they get ahead of you, are an extremely different team. But like the try the Tuilagi scored after 2 minutes just made that a completely different game. This game at the weekend, you won't get freebies off South Africa really unless you get an interception off it. You'll have to score a hard way, because they play, I suppose, a risk-averse game, a kicking game, a territory game, and their kick chase will be very good, and their defence will be very good, and they look to kind of, I suppose, rattle England in attack, drop ball and kick it through and try and create like that, because they won't be pushing passes or anything like that. There's no chance South Africa will change their game plan. It'll be kick, it'll be contest, it'll be line speed, and I suppose where England, I suppose, have really impressed people has been, and Eddie Jones in that regard, his capacity to change up the Slade Tuilagi Farrell after putting 46 points in Australia to a superior performance with a midfield of Ford, Farrell and Tuilagi for the semi-final. So there could be a surprise before even the team is announced to start the final. And what midfield will he go with? Because Slade is a left foot option as well in terms of turning the South African backs, because I think there are opportunities for England by going after South Africa's back three. I think that's Colby is a brilliant attacker, but defensively or aerial contest would be a weakness from my point of view.
Would you see Colby as being a lock to come straight back in?
Yeah, I think he's fit. He plays.
Yeah,
I think they've given him every opportunity. I think it was interesting to watch kind of the reactions South African players after they beat Wales. I thought you could see that wasn't really the game that they were targeting. I think there was a little bit more in the tank, even though it was a very close game. But I think this is November the 2nd has been in their heads for a long time, and I feel that they'll really go after this game, obviously. But I think also it was impressive to watch, I suppose, England. Yes, they demolished and dismantled South Africa or New Zealand in the semi-final, but you could see in their body language that this wasn't the end of the road for them either, which I think a lot of Northern Hemisphere teams would struggle after beating the euphoria involved in beating New Zealand in the semi-final. I thought their reaction was very, very composed and impressive.
Yeah, and our rugby coverage is brought to you with Vodafone, team of us, everyone in. That's the position you want to be in as a head coach, is to know that a semi-final ain't the end of the road, to know that whoever you've just beaten isn't the big achievement. It's regardless of who you're playing down the road, it's
and to be able to slag your fellow coach, to say, I hope he enjoys the third and fourth playoff.
That's the thing I'm kind of interested in, the dynamic of this, because Eddie Jones looks like he's going to be coming up against a brick wall heading into this week, because Razzie's pretty much said that he's not going to engage in any of that, which in and of itself is engaging in it to some degree. But Eddie is a master at that kind of stuff. Yeah,
but is it this time last year they'd lost nearly 6 games in a row, and I can remember watching TV and the camera spanning to his face and he getting booed in the crowd.
Yeah.
I'm not making that up. That's what happened.
Yeah.
In club games. I think it would have been around Christmas time for Eddie Jones. And now all of a sudden, timing is incredible, and even if he has half a plan, it seems to be pulled off to perfection. He just has the guys eating out of his hand, and I suppose that's a skill of a great coach. But I think, to be fair, and a lot of people, I suppose, that follow rugby would understand the role that Borthwick has played in this. I think you heard Tojo after the game speaking how, if lineouts were a PhD, he'd have a double PhD. So that's still, I suppose, the level of detail he gets into. But They went after New Zealand at line-out time and they rattled Cody Taylor and they got huge joy out of it. And that's a massive, I suppose, fundamental of the English game, and it has been traditionally. But to do it, I suppose, when it mattered for the 80 minutes, it was a great plan. And on their own throw, it just looked so simple and they were winning the ball effortlessly.
Come here, you mentioned that losing streak that England were on. Razzie mentions the fact that South Africa, in terms of world rankings, were down 6th, 7th or 8th. It kind of, this final pairing makes a nonsense of World Cup cycles and 4-year cycles in terms of how you're looking to build teams, because it shows that the bridge that can be, gone over within the span of 12 to 18 months, that you can, it doesn't necessarily have to start from point A 4 years prior to end up at point B 4 years down the road. You can do it within 18 months if it's done right.
Completely agree. I actually think you have no chance if you're doing it for a 4-year. Like, it's very difficult for me to sustain interest in something for 4 years if I'm starting out in month 1 to arrive at month 48. I would say wouldn't be. I think, as you say, if you probably know exactly what you want to achieve, I reckon 18 months is perfect timing.
Does that kind of show where our downfall was to a degree?
Well, we could be here a while discussing our downfall. I would think, in the fact that.
But it was mentioned. It was mentioned. It was mentioned after 07. It was mentioned 4 years ago. It's like this thing of, we have to know 4 years from now that we're going to be in position to win the World Cup or be in the position to contend for the World Cup, and that becomes a weight. And you mentioned yourself there, you become bogged down by that kind of stuff if you're taking the same lesson on board day on day on day.
Yeah, I think you're right too. But I think obviously the language probably needs to be changed. Realistically, we aren't anywhere near winning a World Cup or a semi-final, so there's no point even talking like that. Yeah. I think if you're part of the new management going forward, I think you have to be very careful with the wording you use, because it just puts unnecessary pressure. But that pressure is probably the wrong word or wrong way of looking at it. I think what you need to do is you need to understand and appreciate the importance of momentum and importance of having players in form and competition for places and your capacity to have a game that feels that stacks up. But I think that's why it's still very raw for a lot of supporters, the fact that it was just such a massive disappointment. There's no other way of looking at it, I think.
One Irish person who's having a fantastic World Cup is Felix Jones. I mean, this has got to be a hell of a week for him to be in a situation whereby he was heading out of Munster and now he's working towards a World Cup final as part of the South African coaching team, and still only 32. We kind of forget that about him. It's just a remarkable rise to the coaching ranks for him at the moment.
Yeah, it is, exactly. It'd be a great experience. Obviously, I think he's a consultant with South Africa, obviously, but he's part of the full-time staff, so that experience would be absolutely fascinating for him, and it's brilliant for him, because at that age, it's just going to accelerate his development hugely. And obviously, Razzie has a massive amount of faith in him and likes his ideas, and you can only be delighted for him, because it didn't end up well at Munster, and one door closes and a bigger door opens, and he's kicking it down, and that would be his personality. So fair play to him.
Have you had much contact with him since you're on?
No, I don't, because as you said, I didn't realise I'm 42. He's 32, so I was going out another door when he was coming in as a playing. So I had a good few games with him, and his attitude was always great, and I think he has a very open and growth mindset about him. So you forget really how young you at 32 in terms of coaching, but what experience for him, even if he's they had their coaching probably ticket obviously long established, but for them to, I suppose, take him on board at a late stage, it speaks volumes for Felix.
Before we let you go, I want to get a prediction from you, but I get the sense that you might be erring on the side of a South African victory, but not by much.
Oh no, I don't know. No, that's a big call.
I'll leave the call to you then. Go on.
No, I think England will win. I think England will win, but I'm just not too sure how to call it, because I don't think it'll be a kick fest either. You know, I just think there's more in the teams than that. So it was fascinating actually, because the Friday before the semi-finals, there was absolutely horrendous downpours and kind of a tail end of typhoon. So like weather conditions will have a huge amount to play, you know, because if the Saturday then of the England-New Zealand day was sunshine, a dry ball, a firm pitch, even with 12 to 16 hours of drying time. So conditions will have a big part to play, I would think, in it. And that pitch is getting a bit worn from the two hard semi-finals 6 days ago. So it's a great surface, but and it should be a fast game. But you know, the quality of kickers on show too will be huge, with Pollard and Ford or Farrell, two of the most in form at the world. But I would say England by one score. I think it will be tight, really tight.
Yeah, it fixes to be an intriguing contest all the same. Ronan O'Gara, thanks so much for taking time out and speaking to us this evening.
Great to chat. Thanks a million.
Cheers.
Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.